Our text today is taken from the 4th chapter of St. John's Gospel, beginning with verse 1. When therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though Jesus himself baptized not, but his disciples, he left Judea and departed again into Galilee. And he must needs go through Samaria. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. Last time we talked about why Jesus came to the well and why he was weary. Enough time has been spent setting up this scene, so we'll move on with the story. In verse 7, there cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away into the city to buy meat. Remember, as we move along in these encounters of Jesus the rest of the way through this study of the Gospels, that both the sovereign plan of God and the unfolding of time and history in which man must exercise his free moral agency are at work. As to the sovereignty of God, this meeting was set in eternity past. As to the unfolding of time and history, if Jesus had not been weary and stopped to rest on this well, this meeting would never have taken place. Now, you cannot rationally reconcile these two phenomena. But historic Orthodox Christianity recognizes fully that they both exist in the pages of the Bible. And while you cannot rationally reconcile them, they are important to you in your meditations and your life and Christian walk. Billy Graham once said that when he went downtown, he prayed about where to park his car so that he would be sure to meet the people and encounter the situations that God had ordained for him. Your free will and choice has everything to do with how your life unfolds, what your values are, and what experiences you have. Yes, God has a sovereign plan for your life. But from your point of view, if you want to make sure that sovereign plan comes to pass, you need to think and act responsibly in the light of the gospel imperative and the mission of the church. Jesus had a divine assignment to meet this woman at this well, but he had to hurry, wearing himself out in order to get there on time. The sovereignty of God is very real, my friend, but so is time and history. Well, enough of that for now. Jesus was alone at the well because the disciples had gone into town to buy food. This, too, was by design. This discussion would never have taken place if the disciples had been there. Jesus was resting on the well when this Samaritan woman came up to draw water. Jesus had nothing with which to draw water, so he asked her to draw him a drink. In verse 9, Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest a drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealing with the Samaritans. This woman was surprised and perhaps a little sarcastic. What is this? She asked. Are you, a Jew, really asking a Samaritan woman for a favor? I thought you Jews did not want anything to do with us Samaritans. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith unto thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. Jesus ignored her confrontational attitude and went directly to that which was important and for which this encounter had been ordained. Here is good advice and a good example for those who would be witnesses for Christ and the gospel of grace. Don't get sidetracked by politics, sports, local government, business, or any of the other divisive issues of the day, not even religion. Do not react to insults and testy words. If Jesus had taken umbrage at her snide remarks, which he might well have, this desperate soul would have gone away as lost as when she came to the well. And there's something else we need very much to see in the life and the ministry of Jesus, and now is as good a time as any to identify it. Jesus always reacted to real situations developing before him, and he made his case in connection with them. No, the gospel does not change, but the ways and conditions under which it is told do change. Except for the places where these so-called synoptic gospels converge, you will seldom hear Jesus saying the same words to those he encounters. Today, it's about the well and the water. Next, it will be about biblical prophecy that is being fulfilled, and about widows in the Old Testament. For many years, this has been a matter of great importance to me. In my earlier days, I was involved in the programs of telling the gospel by rote. You ask someone how many sins it takes to make a sinner, then you hold up one finger and wiggle it. They see that finger and automatically answer one. Well, I no longer participate in evangelism by mind manipulation because I do not see Jesus or Paul or any of the other New Testament characters doing it, and I do not see it taught in the Bible. To me, this evangelism by rote is part of the humanistic world of neo-evangelicalism, where sales tactics and psychology are used to extract from people by proven methods commitments that do not emanate from the heart. We will do well to take the example of Jesus to heart. Evangelism is for real people in a real world to be presented to real people in real life situations. Jesus uses the situation to initiate the exchange. If you knew who was talking to you, he says to her, you would ask of me, and I would have given you water that is alive and will go on living. When at first the woman does not take his point, she is still thinking about his request for her to give him a drink. But that's all right. She's interested, and she engages. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Who do you think you are? She asks. You have nothing with which to draw water, and apparently you think you're greater than our father Jacob, who dug this well, drank from it himself, and gave it to us to water our families and our cattle. You are quite an impertinent fellow, I would say. You're sounding pretty important for a man who's going to faint from thirst if I don't draw him a drink of water out of this well. Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. The woman catches the look in his eyes and hears a note in his voice that gets through to her. This is no ordinary man. She had best quit sparring with him and find out about this eternal water that will minister everlasting life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come here to draw. Okay, she says, give me some of this water you're talking about. I'm interested in that, all right, and I would like to have some of it. In verse 16, Jesus saith unto her, Go call thy husband, and come hither. Now, this raises an interesting issue that is far from being dealt with satisfactorily in our Western democratic world. Jesus tells the woman to go and call her husband before he gets into this life-changing and family-changing message. And I want to think about that just a bit. Over and over again in the Bible, the promise is made to men that if they will receive the gospel, they will be saved, and so will their households. In the case of the Philippian jailer, for example, after he had heard and believed the gospel, he and his whole household were born again and baptized. When I was an active member of the Grace Brethren denomination, we had a South American missionary named Bill Burke who used to teach that a woman cannot be saved apart from her husband, and that a woman should not be evangelized separately. Watchman Nee also believed that a woman could not be evangelized except through her husband. What about that? Is that biblical? No, it isn't. St. Paul evangelized and led to the Lord Lydia on the beach where women gathered without her husband being present. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, it is acknowledged that a woman can come to the Lord and find herself married to a non-Christian husband. Well, this would obviously not be possible if a woman could only be evangelized and won through her husband. There may be caveats in each of these situations, but it is going too far to say that a woman cannot be separately evangelized and won. However, there is this to say. In our autonomous society, churches have been gross offenders in coming between wives and their husbands. Much of the free labor that the church needs is provided by wives, and often husbands do not agree with that. But the church has given the woman the impression that her commitment to God and the church takes precedence over her subjection to her husband. This is wrong, and it is a wrong. It is true that a woman who comes to Christ and wants to make her mark as a disciple must put him ahead of everything, including her husband. But that also includes her possessions and her own life also. As in all cases, the spirit of truth is profitable, but the letter of it, which is mostly what is practiced in religious circles, will bring the promised death. The Bible places the utmost importance on the sanctity of marriage. Wives, says Ephesians 5:22, be in subjection to your own husbands, not someone else's, even if he is a minister, and that applies to everything. In many cases, obstinate and embittered husbands could have been gotten on board if the right approach to the family was employed by the church. In the Bible, it is the norm and the precedence that the husband be present and take the lead when spiritual matters are on the agenda. Jesus was not only doing what was ordinary in that culture, but he was setting an example for the church of all ages. First, contact the husband. Then, if he's not interested, go from there. But hear this, and hear it well. Using religion to to run roughshod over, to create problems in, and to break up marriages is not of God, and someone is going to do a lot of answering up in the day of judgment. It will not be me, at least on that score, and I trust that it will not be you either. And so Jesus told this woman to go and get her husband. Now the woman must have reasoned that Jesus did not know if she had a husband. She could simply have gone and got him, but it seems evident that she did not want to leave. She wanted to stay and hear the rest of this story, so she resorted to a technicality. The woman answered and said unto him, I have no husband. Jesus said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that saidst thou truly. Now God forgive me if I am being frivolous, but I have always seen a little humor in this story. You told the truth there, lady, Jesus said to her. You've had 5 husbands, and the guy you are now living with is not your husband. As an aside, this alone resolves the silly argument that is going around these days that living together with someone conjugally constitutes marriage. Jesus agreed that the man she was living with was not her husband. Now, you may say that she could not have had a husband because she had had other husbands. And that is an invented argument that will not work here. Jesus acknowledged that she had been married 5 times, but this time she was living with a man to whom she was not married. Anyway, we're not going further on that right now. For a Samaritan woman, this gal had some pluck. And of course, I suppose having lived with 6 different men would serve to take away your fear, awe, and self-consciousness around men. But if she had any defenses left, they now evaporated. The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Now, obviously, Jesus wanted this woman to know that he was from God so that she would listen to him. The bit about the 5 husbands and the present sack job seemed to have the desired effect. She now knew that she was not talking to just any stranger at the well. She knew now that he was a prophet. She did not yet know how much more he was than a prophet, but she was interested in religion and in the controversy between the Samaritans and the Jews, so she shifts gears abruptly. Our fathers worship in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. When Abraham came from Padan Aram, she says, he worshipped in this Mount Gerizim. But you Jews have changed that and said that people ought to come up to Jerusalem to worship. What is your explanation on this matter? Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews, but the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. Jesus answered her, Lady, this is not really an important matter. Sure, there are some things I could tell you. You people in Samaria are worshiping traditions and superstitions, and you do not know what you are aiming for or how you're going to make it all come together. You really don't know what you are worshiping or why. You're just worshiping, sort of, in a way, I guess. At least the Jews know what they are worshiping. They're worshiping the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as you profess to be, and also Moses and David. They're looking for the Messiah, or at least they think they are. But let's not get off onto that subject. All of it is temporary, and soon neither Mount Gerizim, Jerusalem, or any earthly place is going to have any meaning to God or to man. God is interested in the spiritual, not the natural. He wants worship in spirit and in truth to him from the heart. He does not care if that worship comes from Gerizim, Ebal, Horeb, Sinai, Moriah, Carmel, Hermon, from this well, or from your bed in the dead of night. And while the time of the dispensational change is still future, the time when God seeks such worshipers is now. God is spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. God is not a man after the flesh in the eternal sense. He is not going to come down to Gerizim or Jerusalem and meet with you to worship. If you're going to worship God in a way that has any meaning to him or to you, it must be in spirit and in truth, not in the letter of the Old Covenant. Indirectly and unintentionally, I think, this verse has sparked a controversy that is quite important to the church, and as alas are many doctrines, it's very much confused, misunderstood, and mistaught in today's Christendom. I will spend a bit of time trying to expose the Gnostic, Platonic myths and bring some order out of this religious chaos next time, if the Lord is willing.
Read more at godspointofview.com. A copy of this book is available from Amazon in Kindle and paperback format. Link in the description.